my God. Hurry up, get into this. I'm full of rage. I mean, my God. I mean, listen. I hate to say this. I really do. Guys work hard, but that SmackDown tonight, I swear, I've seen independent shows much better than that. It was, I don't know if I can say this or not, but it is the living shits, really. I mean, I watched the 1 hour and I'm saying, well, it's got to get better in the second hour. It didn't get better. It got progressively worse. And it went on and on and on. And I was dying for Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns just for their picture on the screen. Please, just get me something. And if you want to dissect it segment by segment, let's go ahead because it was brutal. I swear to God, instead of capital punishment in this country, what I would do if somebody was convicted of a hideous crime like murder or raping an old person or something, instead of giving them death in the chair, like that lethal injection or whatever, I would tie them down to a chair like this and strap their legs and this arm down, leave this arm free, and put a cyanide pill on the shelf and make them watch over and over and over and over again SmackDown tonight. Then they would have a choice. They could either take the cyanide pill and end it, or they could just watch it. I guarantee you 98% of them would take that pill. Say, just get me out of this hell. I can't take this. It just went on. It was, let's pick it apart. Go ahead. Let's pick it apart. What did you think about it?
I thought that there was some good segments. There was some rough segments.
What the commercials? I was begging for commercials. Please give me something. They did one thing. What did they do? And they just cut away from it. It was with Naomi or something. It was
yes, yeah.
And then all of a sudden they cut and she's walking to the ring. I went, what is it? What is this?
It was the Sami Zayn backstage.
The Sami Zayn thing.
Interview, yeah.
What was that?
There was a lot of stuff that was very confusing on this show, but yes, we're here to break it down. It's me, your True Hill Phenom, SP3, back alongside the legendary Dutch Mantell. Rick Ucchino is not with us this week. We want to send our thoughts, our prayers to his family. He had a loss in the family, so we're dedicating this episode. We're holding down the fort for the main host of Smack Talk, our good friend Rick Ucchino. We hope he's watching and knows that we at Sportskeeda Wrestling want the best for him and his family. So our prayers, our thoughts out to all of them. But he chose a great week to take off. If you're just talking about the first 2 hours that we had to watch, according to Dutch Mantell. But you guys know what to do. Drop a thumbs up on this video if you're watching on YouTube. Give us a heart, a like emoji, a laugh emoji, an angry emoji if you feel like Dutch and you feel like you wasted the first 2 hours of this show. We'll get into AEW.
Or if you've wasted 2 hours of your life. You know, that's so saying that's 2 hours I will never get back. This was the first show that ever really fit that. That's 2 hours that I could have put to another use. And I really, really hate, I've seen a lot of bad stuff in wrestling. And I don't really say anything that much about it because the guys worked hard. It's not their fault. It's what the creative team lays out for them. But whatever they laid out today just did not work at all. Now, they were on... what FS1. Channel was? I don't think they'll beat AEW this week.
Wow.
I think opening was Charlotte Flair, and Sasha was going to be out there. I think that was a bad way to open because they usually open, and it shows her position in the company. I got that. But even that wasn't very good because once she did, that other girl come out, what's her name, Shotzi?
Shotzi.
Shotzi came out. Well, wait a minute. Get into the show, and I'll dissect this.
Yeah, let's get into that first segment on SmackDown.
Remember on my tweet today, I said I have a theory why wrestling is nowhere like it used to be. I'll get into that in a minute.
Looking forward to that. Remember to put your thoughts, your comments in the live chat, super chat donations.
I wish this was tequila. I'd slam it down.
That means it's not, ladies and gentlemen. If you're watching us on demand, let us know what you thought about SmackDown and Rampage in the comment section below. But yes, it started off on SmackDown with the person that ended the show last week, the SmackDown Women's Champion, Charlotte Flair. She came out. Michael Cole had a great description of the Flair-Becky title exchange last week, calling it feisty. I have to say that's an understatement.
Feisty and frosty. Let me ask you a question about that.
Yes.
I've read some reports that said they had words backstage and that she was asked to leave by the upper hands in WWE and she was escorted from the building. Is that true or not?
From the sources that did do the reports, is people that I trust, like Sean Rossap of Fightful, Alex McCarthy of TalkSport, and Mike Johnson of PW Insider. It said that this whole title exchange, we talked about it last week, how it came off very awkward. And the reason why it came off very awkward is because it wasn't how it was supposed to go. Like, Becky was supposed to get both titles in her hand and do the Becky 2 belts, but Charlotte Flair felt like it made her look inferior by Becky holding both titles. So that's the reason why she dropped the Raw Women's title and tried to make Becky grab it, and why Becky threw her title at Charlotte, and why Becky kind of stormed off very angry, visibly angry, to lead into Sasha and Charlotte's exchange. Apparently when they went to the back, Becky let her have it, making sure like she knew Charlotte did that on purpose. Charlotte allegedly said that she did it by accident, which not a lot of people believed her. They got into like a whole altercation. It didn't get physical, but it was very heated. Becky went out for the dark match, and then they said Charlotte was excused from the gorilla position. She didn't talk to Vince McMahon, which got Vince McMahon angry, and then they had her escorted out the building before Becky was done with her dark match, so there wasn't a repeat altercation between the two.
Okay, if you really think of the draft system that they've used, how long have they used that? 10, 15 years or so?
It started in 2002, so we're going on 20 years since the first WWE draft for Blair and Split.
One of the things, I think it could be, I guess it's worked out well in the past in some instances, but to draft your champion to the other show doesn't make sense to me. It's almost like the NFL. You protect certain players. They can't be traded. Wouldn't you protect your champions that they won't be traded off? And then when both of them changed, they got the other show's belt. The best thing to me would have been just have them. They just automatically exchange. Especially, I mean, let's say I don't even know how that works. I think it's got more cons to it than pros, but I didn't like that idea. And you could tell. Now I'm watching the show, right?
Yeah.
So I'm watching it, and you could tell they were pissed off. You tell they were mad, and
to say the least.
And she had it up there, and then she dropped it, and then she trying to grab it, and and then Charlotte was making fun, and you could tell that was not a smooth development. Then Sasha shows up, and then the man, she said, "Well, I'll see you on Raw. I'm out of here," and she just leaves. Very, very. That was one of a clunky segment, and that's not what draws money. I mean, if you can't control your talent from going out there and doing that. But see, they can't fire Charlotte Flair for it. I mean, if it was a lesser deal, they may have suspended her and put her on the shelf, but you can't do it now because it was so obvious what she was doing, and that would just get them a lot of bad publicity. Plus, I think AEW, they want her. That's another reason they can't trade her away. So, but believe this. Vince will not forget that.
I believe absolutely right.
He will not forget it, and he'll hold grudges to the end of time. Till he dies, he'll always hold that against Charlotte Flair because he's gotten mad at guys. He got mad at Savage, and it lasted 20 years. And he wouldn't even talk to him, and Randy went out of his way, but he just would have nothing to do with it. He was, when you cross him, there's no going back most times, I would say. And I think Charlotte, she's a little teed off because they got rid of her dad. They cut him loose. And now she don't care anyway, because isn't her boyfriend or husband in AEW?
Yeah, her fiance Andrade El Idolo.
So, I mean, her path is she's okay. But Vince being held up, and see, that makes Vince look bad in the eyes of the other talents. And either he's going to run the team, or then you're going to have the Renegades, and they take over. And it looked like tonight the Renegades took over that SmackDown show because they looked like they were teed off at Vince, and we'll just get you back. That's what it looked like to me. So let me give you my theory first.
Yes.
I think this is a theory, and you may have heard it, but I don't think you have. And I hit upon this theory, I don't know, several years ago. What is the difference between pro wrestling and pro football, other than one's produced and one's not?
Yeah.
What's the difference?
Well,
what's the difference between pro basketball and pro wrestling?
Well, they're paid more, that's for sure. The NBA
we're not
or
even
NFL.
Or pro baseball.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're all paid more than
even NASCAR.
What's the difference?
What's the difference between pro wrestling and all those sports? The reason is they have seasons. The season begins and the season ends. Football starts in September, pro football and college football. But by February or early February, they have a champion. Then they take the off season. Basketball the same way. Baseball, the World Series, then they take the break. NASCAR, they end up with the World Cup or whatever they end up with. But the season is over, and they don't start back to February in Daytona is when they start their season. Pro wrestling doesn't have a season.
That's true.
And that's the problem. That's the problem with wrestling. Because what if you were watching, you could watch pro football, and you tell me what would happen. If you had pro football on every weekend, what would happen to the ratings?
It would plummet because
they would go to hell. What are they playing for? Just playing just for the hell of it? Pro baseball. If you had it every week, nobody. After a while, if it was on all the time, you don't want to watch it. But that is the state that pro wrestling finds itself in. Is wrestling, and they just go to the next pay-per-view, or they go to next week's TV, or they go, but really there's no grand wrap-up. See, WWE, at least, I'm going to give them credit here, at least they try to say, well, a new season is beginning. But I think they need to have at least 4 to 6 weeks off season. And then you can still do TV. You can just count what you've done all year round, all year long, and just recap it and come forward with it. I don't know if you could do that or not, because they won't. I'm sure most of the contracts read new content.
Yeah. Because
that's basically what WWE now, they're a content provider. And they want that fresh content and if you think, you ever counted how many hours WWE does live every week?
I do. It's 7 hours between the Raw, NXT, and SmackDown.
Yeah, and multiply that by 52 or 50. That's 350 hours of original content every year they have to do. Now, if you add in AEW, what does AEW do? They do 3?
They do 3 hours a week. Well, it's really 2 hours live, because most week they only tape Rampage live on certain weeks, like pay-per-view weeks, and then when they do like the Saturday Night Dynamites, like the last couple of weeks.
So Rampage is taped every week. Okay. But that's still original content.
It is.
So it's still 150 hours for AEW. But do you agree with that if they need an off season?
I've been a proponent of that for a long time, and I felt like when WWE was at its height, when they were, getting a lot of talent from the independent scene and other promotions, and they had enough of a big roster, I thought the thing to do, if you need to do original content, you have all the guys like your Seth Rollins, your Edge, your Roman Reigns, your Brock Lesnar, that's there most of the weeks. Well, not Brock Lesnar, but everybody else that's there most weeks. You could take a 4-week period where those guys are off, and then you take the guys from NXT and you put them on television for those 4 to 6 weeks that the other guys are off, and whoever gets over, those are the guys that are kind of coming to the main roster and stuff like that. They can do it in that way where they're still providing fresh content, but they're giving their full-time major stars time off, so then when they come back in 6 to 8 weeks, they're fresh again and they are renewed because they've had all that time off. And they also, the fans are going to want to see them. You go pop a big rating in the time that you have those guys off, and then they return. You get that return pop, which is one of the most favorite tropes that WWE goes to.
Well, all I'm saying is now I don't think it's wrestling's fault, because it's hard. If you were writing, say, do you want Succession?
My mom actually watches it. I don't watch it. Yeah.
It's a great show, and every week that I watch it, I don't know who's writing the show, but they know exactly what they're doing, because every week I sit back and I say, well, I don't know what they're going to do now. They work themselves into a corner, and they'll come back the next week and run right through it. It's a great show, but it does 10 episodes, then they're gone for 8 months or whatever it is. But you're looking forward to that next series episodes to come out to see what happened. Let me tell you what not to watch. We're supposed to be talking wrestling. We're talking other stuff now. You know the Saints of Newark?
Yes, I do.
Did you see it?
No, I haven't seen it yet.
Overrated.
Really?
It's produced well. But, I thought it would be more about Tony. It's more about Chris and his dad, which to me, they were underneath Tony.
Yeah.
So it should ought to have been about the Sopranos. But it wasn't. It was about Chris, Monticello, or whatever his name was, and his dad. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, who were these people? I know who they are, but I had to think. But anyway, enough on that.
That's basically like if they put on the NXT guys, they're going to be like, "Where's Roman Reigns?" And that's how it was on SmackDown tonight, because I had that question a few times during the show.
Thank God for Paul Heyman.
Yes,
because his interview was the best one on there. At least he made sense. I didn't get it. At all.
But we should talk about the opening interview that we were about to talk about with the aforementioned Charlotte Flair. She noted she's now a 6-time SmackDown Women's Champion, but she's not keeping count, because she says she had a nice little line here where she says, when the other female wrestlers win a title, they're like, "Oh, you won a title," and when Charlotte Flair wins a title, it's just another good Friday. I like that line.
That was good.
She says that she's not only the face of the entire company, she's not only the face of the division, she's the face of the entire company, and she wants to be a mentor for the other women and a locker room leader. Sasha Banks comes out and interrupts. Banks demanded a title shot, but Flair said this is a new era, and that she talked to Sonya Deville, and she feels someone new should get a shot at a championship contender's opportunity. Banks claims that Flair's just scared of her, but suddenly Shotzi interrupts and came to the ring, got a great pop, a great reaction from the crowd. The crowd started chanting Shotzi, and she said that she wants the opportunity at Charlotte Flair. Charlotte liked that idea and agreed to the match. What did you think of all of this opening promo between the three ladies?
Okay, that was probably, it was organized. Yeah. And Sasha was coming. Shotzi was a good way to get her out there and get her into the scene. The only thing I disagreed with was why would Charlotte agree to a title match?
It wasn't a title match. It was a championship contenders match, which is basically the new number one contender. I mean, the new non-title match.
Okay, just they confused me on that one.
Yeah.
But I can see her taking the challenge and turning down Sasha. I got the pretty decent match.
Yes.
But again, it is what it is. But I really missed tonight Roman Reigns. I missed him tonight.
100%. The match went over 11 minutes. The Shotzi was distracted by Sasha Banks. It was kind of mistimed because Charlotte already moved out the way, but Shotzi still was running towards Sasha. She stops to not, collide into Sasha Banks, and then Charlotte gives her a big boot, and the natural selection for the win.
Vince must be watching the show. He's calling me. Hang on, Vince. I'll be right with you.
After the match, Sasha Banks tries to help up Shotzi, but she pushes her away. Shotzi yelled at Banks for making her lose and then attacked Sasha. She viciously beat her down around ringside, threw her into the tank, and then she hit the ball pit, the senton. The fans loved Shotzi throughout the match and before the match, but booed her when she attacked Banks. But it was actually, to me, it kind of sounded like piped in boos. It didn't really sound like the fans themselves. What did you think of Shotzi coming out, getting a great babyface reaction, and then turning heel? I felt like that was the bad move because we talk about it all the time, whether it's the male or the females, they need baby faces, and she got a babyface reaction, and then they turned her heel.
I don't know what it is. Either they're tone deaf of going against the grain. They went against the grain with Becky Lynch. Sasha, they kind of like her, but they'll accept her as a heel. Yeah. This girl, they bought her as a babyface and then turned her heel on a heel. So it doesn't make sense. I would have rather had Sasha, the girl saying blah, 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 and then Sasha berate her, then slap her, then beat her up.
Yeah.
Because if Shotzi needs something, feed her to Sasha the next week. Because what are they going to do? They're going to have Sasha come out and beat up this guy. I don't know. I don't get it. It was, to me, it's reverse booking, and it will not work. It just won't. If you confuse the fans, those are your customers. You're depending on them to buy pay-per-views or to buy merchandise. But if you confuse them, like, I don't know, you're just turning money down. What was the second match? I didn't like the first one. I liked the interview. Okay.
I liked the match. It was just like, this was an episode of everything that I like had a big butt to it. I don't agree with the move to make Shotzi heel. I know that was their plan, but you don't have a lot of baby faces that are over like that. And I don't remember Sasha Banks turning babyface. Sasha Banks has been a heel since she turned on Bianca Belair, and she backstabs everybody, whether it's Bianca, whether it's Bailey. How is she a babyface now? But I guess this whole heel turn was to establish Shotzi as a heel, and that Sasha is the babyface now.
But I don't know what they're going to do with it, because usually you can see when they do something, they did it for this reason. I think they just did this just to have something to do.
Yeah.
But it would have worked the other way around with Sasha doing it, because that made Sasha a bigger heel. Now, what is Flair supposed to be? Charlotte, is she a heel?
Charlotte is a heel. She's definitely a heel here.
I don't know. I think they're. I don't know what they did during this whole week, from last Friday to this Friday, but this whole show was turned around.
I can agree there. Next, we had a short little segment where Kayla Braxton was about to interview Jeff Hardy, but Happy Corbin and Madcap Moss interrupted. Moss told a bad joke, and then the heels walked off. I didn't get that.
What was that joke?
I think it was why
don't witches get pregnant?
Yeah, because they have false weenies or wieners. I don't Halloweeners. Halloweens, yes.
It's so corny, is actually kind of funny.
Exactly. Like, when you think about it, it's like, that was so bad. I have to.
Hollow, I guess. Hollow wieners, I guess.
So bad. they recapped what happened last week, our segment of the night with Brock Lesnar going berserk on
Hey,
Roman.
that was the best part of the show, was a recap from last week. It was.
It was
Because remember how quick the show went last week? Like first 30 minutes, 35 minutes, whew, and the last hour and a half, you was going, God, please get this over with. Well,
and
it continued. It continued this week. They picked up right where they left off. It was a boring first hour. We'll get to the second hour in a minute, folks. Don't believe me. We'll get there.
Earlier today, we got Adam Pearce spoke about Lesnar attacking him. He called himself the heart of the management of the corporate engine that is WWE. I thought that was a great heel line from Adam Pearce. He said he will not allow anyone to disrespect him, and Pearce said he called Lesnar this morning and fined him $1 million in addition to the suspension.
Nobody believes he fined him $1 million. Don't you think that's excessive?
I would say so.
Why not $50,000? People would have bought that maybe. 50,000 or no more than 100, but 50. Yeah. But he fined him $1 million. This whole show was
him to say $1 million, like Dr. Evil.
Oh, that was preposterous, and I've never used that word before, but it was just crazy. He was fined $1 million. I'm thinking, come on, guys, please at least stay in the realm of believability just a little bit. I'm begging you. You think they ran this show by Vince?
I mean, I can see that Vince probably ripped up the original script, and then this is what we got. I can see more of that than this is like what Vince was like, okay, let's do that. Following up from the Pierce promo, we had Paul Heyman was watching in the back. Kayla Braxton approaches him. She wonders what would be Lesnar's response to the fine. Heyman tried to avoid the question, but eventually got worked up. He said Brock Lesnar would go to the offices and beat down Adam Pearce. Heyman couldn't believe Pearce had the nerve to talk about Brock Lesnar last week like he wasn't in the arena. And then Heyman realized that he got so worked up in what he was saying, and he ended the interview. I thought that this was brilliant work by Paul Heyman. Him and Kayla Braxton just have a great chemistry, and it always hits in these backstage segments. What did you think, Dutch?
Oh, that was very good. It was mostly Paul, and Kayla, she does her part too, but she always has that little bit of a smirk on her face. I don't care. She needs to get rid of the smirk on sometimes because, it kind of makes it like it's like tongue in cheek. Maybe that's the way she wants to do it. I don't know. But Paul's interview was actually believable again because he was getting worked up on Brock Lesnar. Then he caught himself, and without saying anything, he just switched gears, and because he'd almost tipped his hand a little bit. So they're still playing that story. Did they ever even mention where Mr. Reigns was tonight?
Nope. Didn't mention it, not once. From Paul Heyman or the Usos, we didn't hear where Roman Reigns was.
I mean, you don't have to hear where he is, but it almost be like you would keep your fans informed that he is attending a meeting or doing something to contribute to his success in WWE, but not a word. And that's very unlike them too.
Yeah, they at least drop something in usually, but they didn't this week.
And I don't know if that's ineptness or it was deliberate. I'm kind of leaning to the side of the ineptness part after seeing this show. I think it may have just skipped them a little bit. So what was our other segment here?
We finally got
boring segments.
We finally got to the second match of the night with Drew McIntyre. He did an open challenge, which was accepted by Mustafa Ali. He comes down and bragged about his skill and promised to beat McIntyre. He got a nice little, the fans broke out in a "You suck" chant. McIntyre had the early advantage after he threw Ali across the ring. Ali tried to fight back, but McIntyre rocked him with a hard chop. top. He goes for the Claymore, but he misses. Ali fought back. He goes for like a 450, no, a tornado DDT, but McIntyre reverses it and locks on a Kimura lock and gets a submission win. So I actually like this segment here because it gave McIntyre a new finisher, a new way for him to finish people instead of the Claymore. And I like the fact that they're trying to get McIntyre wins back after he lost so much on his way out of Monday Night Raw. Although, though, after the match, something I didn't like was...
I didn't like this either at all.
Michael Cole and Pat McAfee tried to talk about King Woods, and then Ali interrupted. He was furious that the fans were booing him and cheering for McIntyre, and he claimed they were booing him because his name is Mustafa Ali. So basically, it sounds like we're going towards the claiming racism. Yeah, and I was just like, WWE never does this type of storyline very well. So I'm very apprehensive about this one. What did you think?
Oh, it's horrible. If people was to say that the fans are racist because of his name, you're indicting every one of them.
Yes.
Now, I'm sure you have people out there who that might fit, maybe 2%, 3%, I guess. But you can't call everybody that because did you feel the fans? They just sat down.
They were booing him before that, and then he said that, and they were just like they kind of reacted like womp womp womp.
Yeah, we don't want to hear that. I don't think we're going to hear that again. I really don't. I'm going to tell this story. The last time I was in WWE, Zeb Coulter was supposed to be the right-wing radical, but the way I was doing my interviews it made sense.
Yeah.
And a lot of people were agreeing to me. So they wanted me to go out one time, and I was talking to Titus. What was Titus, his former partner?
Darren Young.
Darren Young. They wanted me to go out there and say, what I got against them is affirmative action. And I went, guys, I don't want to say that. They said, oh, yeah, that's what they want you to say. I said, why? I said, this other stuff. I said, I guarantee you, when I go out there and I say affirmative action, now I'm racializing. I'm just making Zeb Coulter a straight out racist. So they said, well, do this. And I went to Triple H. I said, hey, man, you're going to kill this character. He's kind of rolling a little bit there. He said, and he did say this. He said, okay, say it. If they don't respond, they'll take it out. Well, I said, well, get ready to take it out because they're not going to respond to this. I'm going to take it. Nobody wants to hear it. I don't care who you are. They don't want to hear it. I went out there and I said that. It was like you could hear not a pin drop, but it got eerily quiet. And they're saying, I know what they're saying. You could read their minds. They said, oh, God, don't take it this way. Please don't lean it. And I went in the back and he come up to me and said, what'd you do? I said, brother, I told you they're gonna crap on it, and they did. He said, okay, we'll take it out. And they took it out. Because they said this come from the top. The top wanted me to say this. And I had to disagree because I didn't want to be I wasn't racist enough toward Mexican, but at least I had a point. They're coming across the border legally. At least they're breaking the law. But see, I told them a lot of things about that Zeb Coulter character that they looked at me like I'd spit on the Pope or something. Like, how could you be in the business so long and have such an odd slant on it? I went, well, because it won't work. I'll tell you what. Well, you don't have to be in the business long to tell if things will work or not. The mood of the country was different then, but they didn't want to hear anything racial at all. And they used to tell me, even when I first got in business, don't say anything like that. You can say anything else. Just don't say it because it's a sensitive subject.
Whoa. I think we lost Dutch there. The neighbor's internet might have gone out mid sentence there, so we'll wait for Dutch to rejoin us here. We should go to the next segment while we wait for Dutch. We saw backstage it was King Woods and Kofi Kingston ran into Hit Row. Hit Row praised King Woods and was honored to be in the presence of royalty. They then sang the entrance using Woods' name instead of Hit Row, saying King Woods, King Woods. So it was a nice little segment to kind of establish that Hit Row are baby faces now. And yeah, I agree with Paul here. He says Dutch was getting great with his story. I hope he remembers where he was at. We also got Ozzy saying, Sid, what happened with Dutch was Chucky playing with his internet. Yes, he plays with his internet and Braun Breaker. So I guess he was rooting for Braun Breaker a little bit too much on Tuesday. So Chucky got his internet because it's Halloween weekend, and that's how Chucky works, ladies and gentlemen. We then had King Woods knighting Kofi Kingston. This was actually a fun segment. This was one of the better segments of the night because King Woods has really embraced this whole character, and it's one of the most played out tropes for heels in WWE is the King character. So we've seen heels play it so many times that we're just numb to it, and it's not a way for heels to get over anymore. But seeing it with a babyface who's having fun with it, who's with his tag team partner in Kofi Kingston, and the New Day just have a certain chemistry and charisma to them that just works with that. We got Dutch back. Got Dutch back. What happened, Dutch?
Hell, I don't know. I just dropped out. I think I have little gremlins around my house pulling my internet wires out. But anyway, I'm glad. And he said, Mustafa Ali said that tonight, and I don't think we'll see it again. I hope we don't. Think so? No, I hope we don't, because that's a no-way street. I mean, sometimes you wonder, what do these creators do? They sit around and just smoke dope all day long during the meeting and drink and say, oh, wow, I got a great idea, dude. I mean, but anyway, it is strange. But Drew McIntyre, I did like his segment tonight. He's a good talker, and he can back it up. And that actually made Mustafa Ali kid, it got him some attention.
Yeah.
Because he was competitive, not for long, but for a little bit. And that's how judging on this, if he doesn't go that racial route, I think you might get him over somewhere.
Yeah, I hope that they can get like a longer form match, because I think they only got 2 minutes on this night. So I hope they can get like a longer match. It can even be better than what we saw.
Rick tonight should have been happy because the girls' match went 2 segments.
That is true.
And they had a pretty good match.
Yeah, they got 11.5 minutes.
Yeah, that Shotzi girl, she's not as good as Flair, but she hung in there and she did well.
She did. I just, like I said, I just think she's much better as a baby face. Like, I've seen her in Evolve, I've seen her in NXT, and even on the main roster. Like, she got over. You heard the crowd. They wanted to cheer her. So you have Charlotte there, who's a perfect heel. You got Sasha, who you want to be a baby face. I understand that, because Sasha Banks is popular and she has her fans and her fan base that love her. I just don't understand going with Shotzi as the heel here. It just didn't make sense.
What about her partner?
Her partner is on Raw now. So they
split the team up.
They split every women's tag team except for Rhea Ripley and Nikki ASH, who are the women's tag team champions.
And that to me doesn't make sense. I mean, it doesn't have to make sense to me. They're doing it, but I'm thinking that's the hard way to do it. Do these teams work together on who they want to draft?
I don't think so. I just think it's kind of arbitrary. I think it's just Vince and Bruce Pritchard who make those decisions on like who's going where. And to answer this question from Christopher, it's True Toxicity. It's one of my other podcasts that I do that's not on wrestling. So yes, if you want to know what my shirt says, thanks.
What is True Toxicity? What is that?
It's a podcast where we talk about men's lifestyle, like me being a father or past conquests with women, what's going on in like latest pop culture stuff. So it's something that's on hiatus now because I've been focusing on this stuff in True Hill Heat. So but yeah, I decided to wear this shirt today. So I like that Christopher asked about it. But Dutch, we should talk about the King Woods knighting Kofi Kingston segment. I was just telling the folks about that while you were out. I actually like this was one of the segments that I actually did like because I think that that Xavier is doing something that is regularly it's been played out as a heel role being a king, and he's just having fun with it. And him and Kofi have that nice chemistry with each other. And I like that the Usos were the ones that interrupted them, claiming that they are the ones and that the being the king doesn't matter. And basically this leads to the main event of the evening, which is the Usos versus the New Day in tag team action. So what did you think about the knighting of Kofi Kingston as the hand of the king of King Woods and Sir Kofi Kingston?
Well, I thought it was boring, to be honest. And I don't think I think they were over more as New Day than this is helping. I mean, this is not hurting them, but I just, to me, if I didn't have to watch the show when that came on, I'd have went somewhere. I'd have went channel surfing. I'd have went somewhere else. They did what they were supposed to do. But to me, as a fan, I didn't find it interesting at all because they've always said what he was going to do. They've always said he's going to knight Kofi as the right hand or whatever they said. So you kind of already knew what it was for. So if they already tell you, well, why would you hang around and watch it?
That's true. I do get that point. That does make a lot of sense there. So I can understand that. I just always liked the New Day and Usos matchup. So knowing that was going to be the main event was like, okay, at least I have that to look forward to, and I can get through stuff like the next match, Dutch, which was Trick or Street Fight with Happy Corbin and Madcap Moss versus Shinsuke Nakamura and Rick Boogs.
Rampage tonight had the same thing, a trick-or-treat match.
Yes.
Rampage, they had it. But this tonight, I think Happy Corbin was over more before than he is now. I think he's deader than Kelsey's nuts. I mean, that's because he's not, you can't feel sorry for him. And I think it was that's an insult to wrestling fans to say that, they're going to use the pumpkins, they're going to do this, they're going to do that. And if I have to see Nakamura and that guy play the guitar one more time, I'm going to throw up. I mean, I don't think that's a gimmick. I don't know how it plays on the road. I don't know how it plays live, but I know how it plays on TV. That to me is a concession break. Because if you have concessions, and then here comes Nakamura and that Rick Boogs or whatever his name. That's a longer intermission. You could just stay longer. If the line was long and they were coming, well, I'm not going to miss anything. I'll just stay longer. So, and I didn't like it. Nobody advanced from that.
No, because Corbin and Moss take the win, but they got the win because two masked men in Halloween costumes look like scarecrows hit Boogs with a Singapore cane, so he got knocked off, and then Moss hit his finisher on Boogs to give Moss and Corbin the win. And then after the match, the masked guys took off their masks, and it's revealed to be Humberto Carrillo and Angel Garza, and that was the most lackluster reveal that I've seen in quite some time.
I'm thinking, and I was thinking, well, it may be a good way to introduce two guys, I guess. But then when they pulled it off, well, they're not, who they are. And so, okay, I got it. But again, what would you give this rating? 1 to 10, 10 being the best, 1 being the worst. Where would you rate this show?
Like I said, there was some stuff that I enjoyed. I enjoyed the knighting. Although I said I didn't like the heel turn for Shotzi, I like the focus on Shotzi Blackheart and establishing her in the women's division. And like I said, I enjoyed the knighting. I enjoyed the main event.
Okay, so let's say
I'll go with a 5 out of 10. It was average.
I'll go with 4. I will go with 4. I think 5 is stretching it. Shotzi would have worked better if we'd have had Sasha turn on her.
I totally agree with you. I totally agree with you there.
And now Sasha would have got more heat. Now she could have come back. Now at least Sasha has somebody to bounce off of. As it is, I don't know.
And that's what I thought was going to happen when Sasha got in the ring. Like, she was cheering her on the whole time. So, like, during the match, I was realizing, oh, Sasha's a babyface now, because she was cheering on Shotzi a lot. And then when she got in the ring, I was like, okay, this is the usual point where Sasha's going to turn back to being a heel and turn on her. And then instead, we got Shotzi to do that. So that was really the most puzzling moment of the night.
Where is this Shotzi girl? Where's she from?
I'm not too sure. Maybe someone in the comments. It leaves me where she's from exactly. Maybe someone in the comments.
How long was she in NXT?
She was in NXT for about a year and a half. I discovered her mostly from Evolve, and then she got signed from Evolve, which is
Evolve. Where is Evolve? It's in Florida, right?
That was based out of like Florida and New York. I went to a lot of like the New York Queen shows, and that's where she like really got her name out there to get signed to WWE.
Okay, let me ask you this since I have you here. I read that WWE going forward in NXT, they don't want anybody with a wrestling background, or they want mostly actors. Is that right or not? Did you read that?
They want guys that like have athletic backgrounds that might not have spent like a lot of years on the independents, because they want guys that they feel like they can mold, and they want guys that are younger than 30 years old.
Well, didn't that fail before?
Yes, it did.
Let's go back to what didn't work before. Because it's like a football player. If they don't play when they start at 6, 7, 8 years old, it's hard for them to pick it up later.
Yeah.
I mean, they can pick it up, but not to be as good as they possibly can. So a lot of these actors don't want to be wrestlers. They'll do it if the money's there. But I don't understand that. Do you?
I think it's very puzzling, because I feel like the golden era for in-ring wrestling has been the last like 5 years, where they got guys from like Ring of Honor and the independent scene. They got the top independent stars. I feel like that's the reason why the in-ring quality has gotten up, because they got guys like Seth Rollins, AJ Styles, Kevin Owens, Tommaso Ciampa. Those are the guys that have gave us like the best matches of the last couple of years in WWE. So it's very puzzling, but I do understand it on the other end, because a lot of fans will complain that when a guy is great in NXT, he gets called up to the main roster and Vince doesn't really get the character. So now they're trying to get guys that they know Vince McMahon will like, instead of guys that the fans will like.
Well, how do they know what Vince is going to like?
Because Vince has a type. He's like a guy that has a type.
But he used to have a type. Also, the big muscle, steroided up guys. What did that get him? He almost went to jail.
Yes, that was actually the Dark Side of the Ring episode this week, the steroids trial. It was on that with Jerry McDevitt, who's a wordsmith. I don't know if you've ever interacted with Jerry McDevitt.
Oh, he called me up one time.
Really?
When I was booking Puerto Rico, here's another story. When I was booking Puerto Rico, they sent me D'Lo Brown and Chaz. What's his name?
Oh, Chaz. He was the former Mosh from the Headbangers.
Yeah. Well, they sent me those two guys. Then they sent me Tiger Ali Singh. Mm-hmm. They sent me him. They sent me another big guy, Russ something. He's about 6'8", 6'9". Russ somebody. But anyway, they sent me that talent. Most of the other places, they were paying territories to bring these guys in. But they weren't paying the Puerto Rican office to bring them in. They were paying them, and then the Puerto Rican office was paying them too. So they had a pretty good gig. So Tiger Jeet Singh Jr., I guess his name, we ran this show in a stadium, and it was raining a little bit. And he slipped and fell because he wasn't hurt, but he claimed he was hurt. So he went back and he was going to sue WWE, and he was going to sue the office in Puerto Rico. He was going to sue me, I guess. So he went back and they was trying to work through this lawsuit. So McDivitt tried to call me, and I wouldn't take his call. I wouldn't take his call. I wouldn't take his call because I didn't want to talk to him. So he finally called me up and he said, Dutch. I said, yep. Jerry McDevitt, main counsel or head counsel for WW. I think it was WWF then. I think. And he says, listen, we got a little problem we need you to help us with. Well, what is that? He says, well, you know that Tiger Ali Singh Jr., he's suing us. Said he was put in the ring down there when it was raining. And then he wanted to know, did I do it or did whatever? And I said, listen, I don't want to be involved in this thing at all. And he kept on. Then he got a little smart ass with me. He says, you know, if it doesn't, he says, you know, if you don't want to work with us, he said, we can subpoena you and call you up here. And I said, well, I was drinking that day, tequila, rum. I was drinking rum. And I didn't like his attitude. And he wasn't making me a dime. And the company, WWE, wasn't making me a dime. I mean, we were making our own money. So I told him, and I don't know anything about the law, but I do know this. You don't call somebody to be a witness without cross-examining them out of court. You got to get a deposition from them, or you got to get an idea of what they're going to say. And I says, well, Jerry, I'm going to recommend this. Why don't you go ahead and subpoena me to court? And you put me on the stand without knowing what I'm going to say. Yeah, let's do that. You know what he did?
What did he do?
He said, well, thank you for your time, and hung up. Because he wasn't about, he knew I was teed off at him anyway, because they wouldn't help us at all. We would want to get talent for a big show. No, you're not going down there. You're not going down there. You're not going to. But yet on the other hand, they wanted to send us talent to train, but we wasn't getting anything out of it. So now when a lawsuit comes up, they want me to help them. I just refuse to do it. Well, I didn't refuse. I said, yeah, you can put me on the stand and see what kind of answers you're going to get. Now he don't know what I'm going to say. And he knew if he put me on the stand in open court, how it would make him look to Vince. So he said, well, thank you for your time, and hung up. Never heard from him again at all. He did tell Undertaker, he says, you know, your buddy Dutch, you know him? He said, yeah, I know him. He says, he's a little bit nuts, isn't he? And Mark said, yeah, well, he can be if you don't get along with him. And he said, well, and that's all he said. Mark told me that later. So
that's awesome. I love that. That's a great Jerry McDevitt story. I absolutely love the way he explained the steroids trial. He was one of the MVPs of the entire season 3 of Dark Side of the Ring. So go out of your way to watch that. But going back to SmackDown, speaking of people slipping on the ropes, you had Shayna Basler versus Naomi. Before the match, we had the segment we talked about earlier where Sonya was trying to talk about Naomi Naomi, and then Sami Zayn interrupted. He brought up Survivor Series, but then he was cut off because Naomi was making her entrance. And this was the matchup between Naomi and Shayna Basler was another angle in the ongoing saga between Naomi and Sonya Deville. Sonya Deville came out and said that the referee for the match was attacked by Brock Lesnar last week, so she would be the referee. They already had a shirt that fit her nicely at ringside ready for her, and Naomi towards the end of this matchup slipped up on the top rope. Shayna Basler kind of wrestled with her. It didn't seem like that was planned at all. She gets a pin on Shayna Basler, which Sonya Deville doesn't count, and then Shayna Basler reverses it. Sonya Deville does a fast count, and then after the match, Shayna Basler chokes out Sonya Deville. So what did you think about this whole segment here in the ongoing saga between Sonya and Naomi?
Okay, I may have missed that last part. Who choked out who?
Shayna Basler choked out Naomi.
Oh, Naomi. I thought you said she choked out Sonya Deville. Now we got both. We have both our main characters, our general managers.
Yes.
Of SmackDown. They're both heels.
Yes.
And I like Sonya being that. I don't think Pierce has to be a heel.
No, not really.
But he's the one that got beat up. He could be the kind of the straight one, but have both of them that way. I think they're working themselves out. Listen, SmackDown went from being better than Raw to now being worse than Rampage. in like a week, 2 weeks.
Yes, I do agree.
And we'll get to Rampage in a minute, but SmackDown tonight, the effort, I guess the work was there, the effort was there with the talent, but the creative part of it was lacking, totally lacking. And that's why I asked before, where does this creative team go from Friday to Friday? Do they just go home and smoke dope and drink, or what?
It seemed like the creative team has taken off since that 30-minute segment with Brock and Roman. But we got a super chat donation here, Dutch, from my good friend DJ Eric. He's a great supporter.
Thank you, Mr. Eric.
He says Dutch Mantell is an OG of the Players Club in IWAMS.
What is that?
He's gonna have to explain that. He doesn't have to pay to explain that, but explain what IWAMS.
Yeah, Derek. Hey, Eric, you have to DJ. You got to explain it, but it costs you $2 just to explain it. Okay, we don't want to make it too hard on you.
He's a great supporter. He's a friend of Dutch as well. I mean, a friend of Kenny Bolin as well. So he's good people. But the final segment on SmackDown to wrap things up on this show, the New Day defeated SmackDown Tag Team Champions, the Usos. I thought that this was a good, fast-paced matchup. I kind of liked the ending, even though the pin kind of came off a little bit awkward. But King Woods tagged in on Kofi Kingston. Kofi took a super kick, and then he was pinned, but King Woods came in and did the roll-up to get the victory with the New Day beating the SmackDown Tag Team Champions. What did you think about the finish, and what did you think about this main event here?
Well, I'm torn on this main event. I think the right guys went over, but that won't hurt the Usos at all.
No.
The masked guy showing up at the end, I guess it was a good way to showcase them at the end. But what good did it do? I don't know. But we already know they're there, right?
Yeah.
Did we know? Well, that was just a way to work them into the scene. I guess it was okay, but I think it started on a kind of a slow note and it ended on a slower note. I mean, it never really got running. It never gathered steam. It never lost steam. It just never gathered any steam. And if you think the first hour was bad, I think the second hour was worse. You agree or no?
I agree. Really, nothing happened until this New Day Usos match at the end. Honestly, yeah, I could have threw that second hour in the bin.
Well, you know, I don't like to badmouth anything and say it wasn't any good, but remember before, you know, Rick was always the one trying to say, oh, well, that was horrible. This was this, that was that. And I was trying not to, because I found some good in most of it. But tonight, I mean, I looked tonight, and I still couldn't find anything that. And I'm sitting there watching it, and I said, wait a minute, if I feel this way sitting here, what does Vince feel like watching it? Now, that's a live show, right?
Yes.
I bet he's on the phone to that creative team and saying, what the hell did you guys do? I mean, it was. So anyway, I think they
the best show at all.
I think they really still need to work on the girls. I think they need to work. And if you let Roman Reigns get away, or somehow, if something happens to him, if this is a show without Roman, it just shows you how much he means to the. What is? Hang on a second. What is that? Oh, that's good. My daughter come in here and said, "How does this look?" It looks great. Looks great on you. So
awesome.
but it was a lackluster show, and I'm going to go since it was on FS1. Is that it?
Yes.
I think Rampage may beat them.
I wouldn't go that far because the Rampage ratings has been going down. They might win in the key
after SmackDown tonight.
Demo.
Yep. Wait, they had 2 hours to go down.
True.
And I think they opening with Charlotte Flair was okay, but then when they didn't open with Roman, I'm thinking, wait a minute, now the whole flow is messed up. I mean, this show fell off from the beginning.
Indeed. Indeed. I totally agree with you. And we're in agreement. I felt like Rampage was the better show as well. And we start off Rampage with the match of the night on either show, which was Bryan Danielson going one-on-one with Eddie Kingston in the AEW World Title Eliminator Tournament.
The difference between Rampage and SmackDown or Raw is SmackDown and Raw always opens with an in-ring. They've been doing that for 20 years.
Yeah.
Opening with an in-ring. Why I like Rampage is they open with a match in progress. Yeah, I've screamed this for years. I used to do it in Puerto Rico. I would open with a match. I wouldn't do introductions. I would just get right into it. Because when you tune in, you want to see wrestling. You don't want to see this long, drawn out. I mean, let's get the people in the mood because that's what they want to see. So I would open with a match in progress, and if I did have an in-ring, I would actually do a second match. Then I would do my in-ring third, once I got the people there, so nobody missed it. And it always worked, and I went almost 2.5 years doing that, and I did tremendous ratings because I did different stuff than WWE did, and my talent in Puerto Rico at the time was nowhere near the talent level of a SmackDown roster or a Raw roster. I had half Puerto Rican kids that learned on some little indie shows. And I was trying to teach them what to do and what not to do. And basically, when you watch my show in Puerto Rico, it was like almost watching a trainee training going on right in front of you. So, but when I tuned into Rampage tonight, now you got Kingston and you got
Danielson.
What is his name now? Danielson?
Yeah, Bryan
Danielson.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this was a brilliant freaking story, which was basically Danielson is clearly the better wrestler, but Eddie Kingston is just too tough, hard-hitting, and too damn stubborn to give up. And he tore Bryan Danielson's chest to raw meat. It was bleeding at one point from those
My
chops.
son-in-law was watching it, and he says, why is his chest all red like that? I said, well, hell, that Kingston kid beat the crap out of him. That's what he did. He said, damn, he's almost bleeding. I said, yeah. He says, have you ever seen guys bleed from the chest? I said, oh, yeah. Years ago, now people may not even, the kids watching today, you'll know who I'm talking about. Wahoo McDaniel.
Yes.
And what's the guy's name that's I can't even think of his name, but he was a big 6'6", blonde-haired guy. He ran with Wahoo for years and years and years. Valentine, Johnny Valentine. Yeah. Valentine would beat the living crap out of Wahoo, and Wahoo would beat the living crap out of him. And this just didn't go on. This is what made, I'm way back in the past, people. I'm back in the 70s now, back in the mid-Atlantic territory. Johnny Valiant was famous for not going 10 minutes or 15 minutes. He'd go 30 minutes, 40 minutes, sometimes 50 minutes. He didn't get warmed up to 20 minutes. And he would just, and Wahoo the same way. But he wouldn't be fly. He didn't take a lot of bumps. He just went out there and he'd lock in. And especially in the summertime when they would pour sweat, these guys looked like they were really, really trying to beat each other that time. When they throw those chops, some of those buildings would have echoes in them. You could hear it. No, people go, whoa. Yeah. And when they left that night, they thought they had seen two guys trying to really win a contest. They did it the hard way, but they did it right. Because when you can hear a guy get hit, there's no way you can kind of manufacture that. He's either getting hit or he's not. And that's what you got in this match because they were throwing those shots.
Oh, yeah. They were not pulling up. Kingston with the hard chops, the machine gun chops at one point. You had Danielson with the kicks. Oh, one sequence I really liked was Danielson going for the Fujiwara armbar, and Kingston fought out of the hold, and like he goes for the other arm. So Kingston used the arm he did have into like a DDT. They both recovered. They exchanged strikes. Kingston went for an enziguri, but Danielson blocked it. Then Kingston hits a back fist, and they're both down. And the crowd is going
that back fist looks like it knocked him out.
It did. I was like, I even had to brace myself to not wake up my twins because I was going crazy during that point. And then
you know how much effort that takes? That takes you got to get in the mindset of a shoot.
Yeah.
Hey, I don't know MMA. I don't know, but I know how to kick a guy. I would know how to do a spinning back fist. But if you make it look like you're trying to hit him, I had these series of matches with Lawler one time, and I said, now listen, I'm going to back you into the rope, and I'm going to throw the punch. I want you to duck it. And I said, I want you to duck fast because the punch is coming. If you don't duck, I'm nailing you. He said, I'll duck. So when I threw it, it hummed in there, buddy, and he ducked, and you could feel the people, wow, he tried to hit him. Then I would kick at him, and he'd move out of the way. So we had a couple of matches. We didn't really lock up to about 5-minute mark, 6-minute mark, because we were slapping back and forth. But the people were settling in, and we were letting their brain run first because you have to get it into the people's mind. They got to get in a mindset that this is a contest.
Yeah.
And they actually believed that because we were about a 70% shoot. Let me say that. I mean, I'm not going to take him down and try to, break his arm or anything. But if I swung at him to kick him, he either got out of the way or he got kicked. So once you get kicked a time or two and it kind of stings, next time you'll get out of the way. And I told him that, and he said, well, let me do the same thing. So when he threw a punch, I would duck it. But the effort was there that if he hadn't have ducked, I would have nailed him. And it got into people's minds that we were really trying to beat each other. And I've had people ask me, and this was probably in this is 40 years ago. I've still had people ask me about those matches.
I bet.
And now this was before pay-per-views. I mean, I think maybe WWE was just starting the pay-per-views, but we didn't have pay-per-views. We just had live TV or live matches. But Memphis used to draw such a big crowd on Monday night during that hot air. We draw 10,000, 8,000 to 10,000 almost a regular basis. Even on our average card, we draw that much. But the people who come to see those matches, they still, even when I'm on Facebook or something, they still remember that and they still bring it up. So,
it stays in the memory.
Yeah, well, it was a testament to Lawler because he is great. Somebody said, how great is Lawler? Because I remember Bret Hart said one time, Lawler's not all that great. Well, I beg to differ with him because Lawler said he didn't do a lot of moves. He did, but he never wasted a move.
Yeah.
Everything he did, he had a meaning to it, and he had great timing, and he had great precision with his punches. So, and he knew he could, like a good heel knows how to read the crowd. You got to be constantly, if you're a good heel, you're 3 moves ahead. You know exactly where you're going, and you're listening. You listen to that crowd. Those are your customers. You're listening to them. So, and you're taking it here and taking it here and taking it here for that third move to get the pop or to get the move in. And Lawler was great at that because he drew money everywhere.
Yeah. And I was going to say, because to come to the conclusion of this matchup, after the back fist, they're both down. The crowd's going crazy because they're both major baby faces. And it seems like Kingston's going to try to get the cover after the back fist. And Danielson just traps him in the triangle choke. He rams him down with elbows to the head. And Kingston gives him a middle finger before he passes out. I thought that finish was amazing. I thought that this was a tremendous opener, a tremendous matchup here. How hard is it to have this great of a matchup when it's babyface versus babyface? Because I hear that a lot from competitors.
It's not hard at all because the crowd was evenly split.
Yeah.
So that's what you get with babyface versus babyface. And see, I think it actually helped Kingston more than it helped Danielson.
Yeah.
It helped him more because now he's getting a character like Stone Cold, because he can do anything now. He can do anything he wants to do because he's about half nuts, and he is, and he won't vary from that. He won't try to be a good guy. I had him in TNA, and I loved his interviews then. He didn't really get a chance then, but we were so politically divided back in those days. A lot of guys didn't get a chance. But I heard him do an interview, and I said, man, that guy's good. He's really good. But they went into this match saying, listen, they know what's going to happen. Let's just dig at it. Because this is as much as Brian, because Brian, you can tell he likes Kingston.
Yeah.
And he said, hit me. He said, hit me. They don't mind getting hit. Is what it is. And if that's what it takes, that's what it takes. Now, where was this match from? Boston?
It was in Boston, yeah.
Well,
which was a hot crowd.
Boston and New York, they're tough crowds. If you go in there and you try to be too finessey with them, they'll say, get the hell out of here. But if you got two guys, if they just, bust balls and balls to the wall, that's what the reaction you're going to get. I guarantee you, Kingston left the night and his fans were still with him. They said, man, I think you could either, and I can see something with him. They have sometimes when you have two guys in a match, you don't really worry so much about the moves. You worry about the chemistry.
Yeah.
If they got chemistry, they can do anything they want to do. And the people will buy it.
I just love how they focused on this match kind of the rest of the show, because they came back from commercial after the finish and they showed us during the break that Danielson tried to show Kingston some respect with a handshake, but Kingston walked off.
That's good.
Then we go to Tony Shabani interviewing CM Punk, and it felt like a kind of like an unscripted segment to really start a program between Kingston and CM Punk. CM Punk's talking about something completely different, but Eddie Kingston thinks that he's laughing at him or joking on him. So he comes in, he gets into CM Punk's face. Punk called Kingston unprofessional and asked Kingston if he wanted to go to sleep again. He said he just saw what happened, and Kingston and Punk have to be separated. And this felt like they were building towards the pay-per-view. What did you think about this whole backstage segment? Because I loved it almost as much as the matchup.
It was unprompted. You didn't know it was coming. All of a sudden it happened. And that's the way things happen in real life. It just, a guy walks in, he thinks he hears something, whether the guy said it or not, and he gets in his face. That's how things start. And that was believable. As long as you can take that, wrestling has had these stigma on it, and I don't know if it's a stigma or not, of being fake for years and years and years. Little kids, when they grow up, is say your prayers, take your vitamins, and wrestling's fake. They grow up with that. But if you can kind of go against that and make them think, well, and I call that the zone of believability, because here's you're not going to believe it. That's too much. But right in here, that little zone right in there, if you can get in that zone and stay close to it, you got them. And I think Kingston, he can almost work with anybody now if he keeps doing this and having those good matches. It doesn't matter whether he gets beat or not. As long as he puts that super effort in, which he did tonight. The only thing I did like this, but I think instead of dropping, and as soon as he dropped it, the referee rung the bell. Yeah. I think he ought to picked his hand up once or twice, said, okay, let's go. He's out. I think it was a little bit too fast.
They tried to do it like MMA kind of, like with when you can tell the guy is out, you don't really like lift the arm up. That's more of a professional wrestling thing. I think that's what they were going for, but I do understand where you're coming from.
Well, yeah, but you couldn't see his eyes, right?
Yeah.
So you don't know if his eyes rolled back in his head or not. I can see that. It's a little thing, but I would have picked it up once or twice and then rung it.
No, I do understand where you're coming from.
You're going to get to the same spot. It's just a little bit of, is he really out?
Yeah.
Because maybe he wasn't out. Maybe his hand would come up. Anyway, great match. Who give us $2?
We got Jason Robbins.
Jason, you're a good man.
He says, in booking, when should a heel win clean, Dutch?
Well, you got to have heels that you got to have, your whole territory has to be gauged like that. I used to put baby faces over all the time, but when I put the heel over, sometimes something else would happen. Not necessarily the heel would do it. Something else would happen. He would hurt his knee. He would hurt this. He would hurt that. And that's when you kind of move the heel had a little heat, but not quite enough. I mean, the deals of using the gimmicks and doing this and doing that, I think you just piss your fans off, because especially today, because you're too well educated to accept that as a finish. You used to get by with that because it was just a blatant, cheating effort, but you can't get by with that now. And the heel should win according to what what you got in the pipe for him. Yeah. If you got the baby face coming along and who should win and who has the most money behind them. So a lot of things you got to think. Booking anybody can be a booker. Anybody. A 12-year-old kid could be a booker because, say, we're going to have a match, Sid, and the first week I hit you in the head with a 2x4. Well, okay, that's called a gimmick.
Yeah.
Then the second week, the kid comes back and says, Sid, you hit Dutch in the head with a 2x4. Boom. Okay. But that's not really an angle now, because now you're even with me.
Yeah.
So what is to go for? Then the third week, we both take 2x4s in there and beat the crap out of each other. And then we go to a pay-per-view. I used to tell Vince Russo this. And I say, damn, Vince, they have wrestled each other 3 times. Now we're asking people to buy a pay-per-view. I said, what we need to do is actually throw the writer in who wrote this whole angle
and hit him with the 2x4.
And beat his ass up with the 2x4s. We might sell some. He said, hey, that's not a bad idea.
I love it.
But again, like in everything else, and I've said this before, it's not the first step that's so important. It's the second step.
Yeah.
You shoot the first one, but the second one has to be right there. It's got to follow, in theory, what the first angle did. Otherwise, you're out of sync. You're out of kilter. Make sense?
Yeah, I understand where you're coming from. Well, we should get to the next matchup on Rampage, which I thought was very good as well. Not as great as the opener, but very good. We had Dante Martin going one-on-one with Matt Sydal.
Great match.
They pushed this as the third beating between the two. Sydal won the first two, but this one was just as good. But Dante Martin is just incredible, Dutch. Like that springboard drop kick that he did, he looked like he was in the 30th row of the building because he got so high. Like his hops is ridiculous, and this was really a showcase for him. Matt Sydal was very good during this. Nice little head kicks. He went for the move that he's used to beat Dante Martin the last two times, but Dante reverses it, hits a flip stunner, and then he hits a double springboard moonsault to finally beat Matt Sydal with Leo Rush in his corner. What did you think about this match here?
Great match. Now, see, I don't really follow AEW that much except for Rampage.
Yeah.
So I didn't know the history between these two. But that kid, that Dante Martin, I saw him. Didn't he work with Punk 2 or 3 or 4 weeks ago?
I believe he either worked. I think he worked with either Powerhouse Hobbs a few weeks ago, or I know he versed somebody on Rampage. Yeah,
maybe it was Powerhouse Hobbs.
Yeah,
but I'm looking at the reserves of AEW. They have more potential.
Yeah,
than I think SmackDown has. I don't know, because I don't know if it's the 3-match format they use, because 3 matches is a lot easier to concentrate on, and you can get a guy over more with a 3-match format than you can a 7-match format.
That's
because
true.
Now they're just a part of it. Just here comes the lineup, but Dante Martin has a great future ahead of him, and guys like that really are easy to book. I mean, you don't have to really do a bunch of stuff for them. Just say, go out and be yourself. That's the way wrestling used to be. They used to say, go out. Jerry Jarrett used to tell me in Memphis when I go out there and do an interview, he said, oh, you're wrestling this guy, or you're working with this guy, and it's just type of match. And I asked him, I said, what do you want me to say? He says, say what you want to say. Just sell some tickets. So he told me to go out and get yourself over and sell some tickets. See, that's how much freedom we had back in the day. Now they write it down and,
Yeah.
Listen, I went to WWE and they would write stuff down for me and they would give it to me and I'd read it. Okay, I got it. Then they would say, now you got it? Yeah, I got it. Then the writer would come up and say, you got it? Yeah, I got it. Then he come up to me a third time. He said, you got it? I said, GD it? Yeah, I got it. I mean, how many times you going to ask me that? He said, well, you want to do it here for me? I said, no, I do not want to do it here for you. I said, I've been in the business for 142 years. I can read and I can produce a damn interview. So please. Oh, I didn't mean to make you mad. I said, God, man. I mean, he made me hot, I mean,
yeah.
You don't get 40 years in the business by not knowing what you're doing. And I maybe not have been, I wasn't up with Hulk Hogan, Savage, and all those guys, but still, I went through the same stuff. I could do it. Hell, most people can do an interview better. Hogan anyway. It's all he went. Oh, and Savage, I love Randy.
Brother.
Yeah, I love Randy Savage because you only had to do half an interview because he said everything twice. Like, yeah, man, yeah, and dig it. Everything he said twice. So you could do a half an interview, and then you put it together, then it's a whole interview. So
pretty simple stuff. I do gotta ask before we get to the main event, Dutch. What did you think of your ongoing critiquing of Mark Henry with the backstage interview before the pre-main event? Because I thought that this was the best he's done. Yeah. His response to Abaddon
he was funny.
Awesome.
He says, "Well, I guess Abaddon didn't have an answer or whatever."
Does it have a comment?
Oh,
because she spit out blood.
Hey, I kind of like that girl.
Yes.
This is the first time I saw her. Did somebody get hurt in that match I read about Britt Baker? Did she get hurt?
I'm not too sure. I would think that with the thumbtacks, she probably did get hurt because she just I don't know, these no DQ street fights. She likes to take the thumbtack spot, so I wouldn't be surprised if she got hurt. I didn't read anything into it, but I thought that this started off weird because Abaddon's gimmick is very strange because he's like a zombie
Okay,
type
but
girl.
I put myself in the form of a brand new fan. So I'm sitting there. Okay, say you're sitting there and you've never watched wrestling before, and you're drinking a little bit and you're by yourself and you turn this on, and all of a sudden this damn vampire comes out there.
She stands out immediately.
And you're saying, what the hell is this? I'm not changing the channel. I'm going to say, what the hell is this going on? I will watch the thing all the way through. Yeah. And she did good. She's a little short, dumpy little thing, but with that mess on her face, and it was Halloween too.
Yes.
It was, to me, it was great. Britt Baker is good, and they never did break that table, did they?
That table was one of the biggest villains in this matchup because they did a spinning neck breaker off the apron and the table didn't break. Then they did a suplex and the table didn't break. I think that's one of the main reasons they had to bring out the thumbtacks, because they didn't get the table breaking pop. So they wanted a different pop, so they had to go to the thumbtacks. But I thought that this was started off weird, but it got really good towards the end of this.
Did that table have two slats running down or two supports running down? Yeah. The length of it, right?
Yeah.
That's why it didn't break. You know what they don't know is you got to what they call they got a word for it. You etch it, I guess, in certain places. You make it weaker.
Yeah.
But there was no weak place made. I don't know who put that table together, but you know, to break a guitar over somebody's head, you got to take those supports out in there. Unless you do, you're just going to bang it off his head. I brought Jeff Jarrett to Puerto Rico one time. I told him to hit with this guitar, and I didn't know he's supposed to do that. So I just gave him a guitar. He knocked that guy out. It went boom, and it never broke. And the guy went. Jeff later said, "Man, Did you etch the guitar, or what do you call it?" I said, "What do you mean etch it?" He said, "You got to take those supports out." I said, "Well, hell, nobody told me. I had to taking it out." So, but anyway, I thought it was good. I thought it was a good finish, and the girls with Brett, they're kind of getting over a little bit now. Because she's a good-looking girl, and she has these other two girls with her, and they're kind of getting over.
They're nice heaters for her.
I think AEW, their support team, their underneath guys, or as I call it, their bench, is stronger than SmackDown's. Yes or no?
I totally agree with you. I think that Roman Reigns is the biggest star. Like, he's bigger than everyone on AEW. But when you trickle down after Roman Reigns, it gets weaker and weaker. Whereas, like, guys like, you got your Kenny Omega, who's the AEW World Champion, but you also got Bryan Danielson, who's just right there with him. You got a Jon Moxley that's up there with them. You got a Hangman Page. You got a MJF. You got a Darby Allin. You got Chris Jericho. And then you trickle down from there, and you got the young stars like Sammy Guevara, Dante Martin, Powerhouse Hobbs, Ricky Starks. Like, you're totally right. Like, their depth is something that's just can't be matched by WWE right now.
I don't know. That's hard to. That even surprises me that we can even say that.
Yeah. But
see, AEW, I like their format. I don't know how their 2-hour show is, but the 1-hour show is. See, that's the perfect length for a wrestling show, a 1-hour show. And then the 90-minute show we used to do in Memphis was another perfect example. But it's hard to sell a 90-minute show. It's got to be an hour or 2 hours, or 30 minutes or an hour. So, but the hour shows, you can get a lot done in an hour show.
It's true.
But in an hour show, they seem to put double the wrestling that WWE puts in. because WWE takes up all that time with their in rings, and some things just I don't know. I'm gonna have to call Vince up and talk to him about his show. I'm gonna tell him it's upsetting me and my buddies. So gonna have to.
We need you to do it live on Smack Talk next week. Call them live on the show and be like, if they don't have a good show next week, we need a live call with Dutch calling Vince McMahon, like right here on Smack Talk next week.
Hey, the first time before I went to WWE for the first time, it was in the 90s. I used to call once a week because that's what they said. If you want to get booked, call them. Keep calling. And I forgot who gave me this. He said, what's the worst they can say? The worst they can say is no. That's the worst they can say. He said, so keep bugging them till you get the answer you want. I called up there so much, I forgot the receptionist's name at the time. Say her name was Betty. And I said, well, who is this? Well, this is Betty or whatever. And I called so much, she knew my voice. I say, is Vince in? Oh, no, Dutch, he's not in. But I would tell him you called. And she kind of liked me, and she told him. So, but I called so much, she knew my voice. So I called up there one time, and I gave them an idea. I says, you got the Bruise Brothers coming in? They said, yeah. And I told J.R. Dillon, I said, why don't you bring me in to manage them? And he thought about it, and I could feel the wheels turning. Yeah. He said, that's not a bad idea. Let me run this by Vince. He called back 30 minutes later and said, Vince loves the idea. You start on such and such a date. And I went, well, damn. If I'd have known that, I'd have been pitching crap a long time ago. Because they want people to give them ideas anyway.
Because they need it. They need the ideas. They need it.
They need something now. So anyway, but
Dutch, tell the people where they can find you, sir.
Well, usually in the county jail down here in Florida. And no cash bail. I mean, cash bail, so bring some cash with you. Now, you can find me on Facebook, Dirty D Mantell, or you can find me on Twitter, Dirty Dutchman1, and I'm something on Instagram. I forgot what it is. So, I mean, I got all these handles. I need to put them all under one, but I just can't quite get them. Oh my God! So, but anyway,
it's fine.
Hey, I got a new book coming out, and I hope it'll be out by a little bit after. I'm trying to get it out by Christmas. I don't think I'll be able to meet that, but these are all old stories they've never heard. Because if these old timers used to tell me these stories. And unless they're documented and written down, they'll die. And some of them are so old, they're new again. And this time I'll talk more about my WWE time when I went back and how strange it was to be in that dressing room. And I've told you this, when I walked in the first WWE dressing room in 2013, I was in Nashville. 75 or 80% of the dressing room didn't even know who I was.
Really?
Yeah. And they said, who in the hell is this? Who called an Uber? But they knew the name. They didn't know me. Some of them did, and some of them didn't, because they weren't wrestling fans. They were fans, but of WWE style. So they weren't old time wrestling fans. But after I was there a while, and they finally caught on, and I never distributed any too much information, because if they wanted it, I never tried to tell them anything on my own. If they wanted it, they'd come ask for it. I'd give it to them. But as far as me as volunteering this, that, and the other, I never did that, because a lot of them look at you then you're overreaching. And, hey, I just wanted to pick up a check. So this would be my last time I'd have a job with a wrestling company anyway. So
Smart move. Smart move. Well, you can find me on the Twitter machine at True Heel SP3. You can also subscribe to my YouTube channel, True Heel Heat. We're going live at 11:05 a.m. Eastern Time tomorrow. True Heel Heat 149, Honorable Death. We're going to be talking about Ring of Honor and the state of Ring of Honor. Is it going out of business? We're also going to be talking about Charlotte Flair and her backstage heat. And we're also be doing our third fantasy wrestling draft with all-time ROH performers. So check that out. True Heel Heat tomorrow at 11:05 a.m. Eastern Time for Dutch Mantell. It is me, your True Heel Phenom SP3. That has been Smack Talk, and we will see you next Friday for SmackDown and Rampage.